Great. Are we rocking? Okay, microphone sounds good here. That's much more than I would have said about myself. Jason, thanks a ton. I'm really glad to be here with you all. Our intention today is to unpack what the future of AI and data is going to look like. We're going to get an up close and personal look at Arkestro's approach. I've followed this company since they were literally at idea stage. Now we've got all these talented people, and I'm looking forward to getting their perspective. And we're going to talk even a little bit about where procurement and data are headed into the future. So we've got a lot to unpack, and we'll fly right in. I want to let our panelists introduce themselves first. So we'll start with my left, and Eric, take it away.
Hey everybody, Eric Buras. I'm the head of data science and machine learning at Arkestro. My background's in math and applied math. Started out my career in cybersecurity research, moved over to supply chain visibility, went to an enterprise data science studio company, and then joined here about a year and a half ago. Never thought I'd be in procurement, but a lot of big problems to solve, a lot of data, a lot of messy data. If you're here in the talk right before this, we can get into that. Have had a great time.
Hi everyone, I'm Sridhar. I'm the machine learning services lead at Arkestro, joined about 4 months ago. I started my career at McKinsey & Company as a generalist, and I worked in advanced analytics for the firm. I decided consulting wasn't for me, and I really wanted to go build stuff, so I actually moved to San Francisco with no job and said, I'll figure it out here. I joined a startup as a machine learning product manager, Circle Up. We tried to use machine learning to influence investments in the private market space to make them better and faster. Decided I wanted to go work at a really big company, so then joined Google, or Waymo, as a product manager on simulation, machine learning, data and analysis infrastructure, managing 100 engineer data science scope. Worked on some fun problems like detecting stop signs on construction zones with the perception team. Really, really fun, but it's kind of a slow problem to solve. And so I really wanted to get back into working at startups and faster feedback loops and talking to customers, which is why I joined Arkestro, which is a really nice blend of product, data, ML, and to top it all off, getting to talk to all of you wonderful customers, getting feedback and making the product better.
And hey everybody, Ben Leiken, Leiken like bacon is how you pronounce that fun last name. I'm the CTO here at Arkestro, and my background, I'm a software engineer by trade and education, but also have a background in product management prior to coming here to Arkestro about, nearly 4 years ago. Began my career at a company called SurveyMonkey, which was a really great place to cut my teeth in the field of software development, building really delightful user experiences that touch literally of millions of users per day. Taught me a lot about building delightful user experiences and products that really motivate end users to put data in them and deliver insights back to those same users. SurveyMonkey was going through a really interesting transition while I was there and really building more intelligence and machine learning into their product suite. So I got to work on everything from natural language processing in survey response analysis for open text questions, all the way up to building predictive survey scoring capabilities that would actually tell our customers how likely their surveys were to get high response rates and how long it would take an end user to actually complete one of their surveys. So that was a really fun space to be in, and enjoyed my time there. But what got me fired up to join Arkestro was this opportunity to bring data to bear on procurement, which is an industry that, generally speaking, is rather behind the times in terms of its adoption of big data and machine learning. So fundamentally, what motivates me is building great products that customers want to buy and getting to build, really exciting products that have a big potential impact. So that's what brought me here, and today I'm just really excited to get to work alongside folks like Eric and Mal and keep building this great company.
All right, well, format-wise, now that everybody knows everybody, we've got a little bit of a demo of Arkestro's approach here that Eric's going to walk us through, and then I'm going to be unpacking some of the ROI of AI in this space afterwards with some fireside chat conversations. So Eric, if you want to take it away.
Sure. Part of the reason I got into data science was that I didn't have to build slide decks ever, so I don't have any slides for you. I'm just going to mirror my screen and show you, what the day in the life of sort of our product building team does. Starting out with data in Excel, probably something everyone's familiar with. Again, what Susan said about messy data, you see a null column here, probably some weird misspellings here, maybe some, commas or apostrophes, but standard that we deal with messy data. We like dealing with that. It's no barrier to entry. There does require a lot of work into cleaning it up, and it would be ideal if all data was clean when it came to me, but that's not the case. So starting out with some data, and then I'm just diving into the back end, the product that we use to build all of our data infrastructure. It's a company called Dataiku. It's an end-to-end data science studio platform. You can pull data in. It goes through a bunch of different joining, transformations, cleaning, code, no code. What we're seeing here is just the seasonality section. It's you probably heard about that in the demo, where we identify the best quarter to buy if we have several years of data. So this is just one modeling section. If I zoom out, there's many different modeling sections. This is all part of building 30 different insights and recommendations using your historical data. So just sort of some of the back-end infrastructure. And then I will just jump right into the procurement impact assessment. So you heard about this in the demo. PIA, colloquially. So we have some spend analytics at the top. A lot of people have spend analytics. So I'm not going to spend most of my time there. I'm actually going to spend some time on the spend status, because tying again to what Susan said, we understand data comes in pretty messy. What we want to do is set that aside in a separate bucket, understand what's going on there, or maybe just more in-depth research, more customer communications, and then focus on clean spend. So this is spend that's normalized already. Maybe it's direct materials that you have more of a handle on. But then in this other sort of slice, and this is all anonymized data, that's, there's no customer information here, but we see, quantity very low, data quality issues, quantity very high, quantity all one. So like when we try to classify data automatically through our product, we try to identify what the potential issue is. So if you see different prices, but you see all the quantities are one, that could be just some human-entered information where someone didn't want to spend the time to put in all the information. So we will set that aside and understand that we're not going to be able to impact that right away. We need more research into what's going on there. So just from a high level, we try to understand spend status, clean or unclean, and how unclean it is. Like I mentioned, I'm going to skip a little bit of the standard spend analytics, spend by category, spend by purchasing org, and then jump down into our differentiation, which is the annotated detail. So for every record that comes into our system, we annotate it with enriched information through modeling. So for every category, item, purchasing org, we identify what is the best opportunity. Maybe it's different prices being paid. Maybe there's some seasonality opportunity. Many different opportunities. Do you have a preferred supplier, and who is it? What's the spend status? So is that like clean or quantity very high? Like for every item, we can understand how to bucket it and put it in a place where it can be impacted. And then what's the financial opportunity? What's the total spend? Is there a purchase price variance score? Is there a price versus quantity relationship? How many different suppliers are you using for that item in that category? How many purchase orders are you creating every quarter for that? And is there a seasonality weight? So these are just some of the different scores we're attaching to every single record that comes through. And this is all automated. So we get that data in Excel. We have a common mapping framework to put it in our databases. And then this gets built automatically. So this is how we try to provide fast time to value. So this originally was conceived of as fast time to value because we wanted to take customer data in and find areas to impact right away. And then we can talk with your business units, talk with procurement, and really dive in further. But when you send someone data, we want to motivate and get that data, but also turn around and start a conversation about where to go from there. So let's say, and so again, you've seen some of this in the demo, but I'm just gonna sort of dive in a little bit further. So let's say we see impact opportunity by purchasing org. Let's look at plant 3. So we have the ability to sort of drill down, and I'm gonna maximize this. And so we see this is sorted by biggest impact. So phosphorus trichloride in raw materials, best opportunity is purchase price variation. There's no preferred supplier. Here's your total spend, and here's the impact we think we can make. We're we're not going to be able to achieve all of this impact, so we're not calling it savings necessarily, but we think there's an impact to be made. And so I got to this point in 2 clicks and really, saved a lot of time trying to figure out areas to go target. This is all also exportable as CSVs, so you can send this around, share with stakeholders, and get off to the races. I'm then going to transition over to one more screen here as part of my little demo, but this is the price section of our impact assessment. And so we have 4 different sections: top level spend, price, process, and supplier. So we want to answer questions around, are you getting the right price from the right supplier, and is it at the right time? So that's our central objective with this tool, is to start asking questions and enable people to go answer questions. And so if you remember, phosphorus trichloride was the best opportunity in that in that purchasing plant. I think it was plant 3. So what I can do is, that shows up here in the purchase price variance section. I can actually double click, or second, sorry. All right, seemed like it was a timeout issue. You click in and you can see all the raw transactions associated with phosphorus trichloride by purchase order number, when it was purchased, what plants are purchasing it, who the supplier is, and then the prices per unit. And so we identify price variance as you're paying different prices from the same supplier at the same purchasing org in the same quarter. So this is pretty normalized for time and supplier. We understand that prices are changing year over year very fast. So we don't think you can make an impact in an opportunity just because the price was much less 2 years ago, like things have changed. So we try to normalize for that. And then we also have quantity. So here again, you can export, you can see different prices being paid, and you can go off and tell a business stakeholder, phosphorus trichloride, we're paying all these different prices. Why is this happening? Let's go get a handle on this. We did that in approximately 5 minutes. And so we can go into different categories, different items, look at different suppliers. We have a couple more reports that we can show, and I'm happy to demo this and talk about this. I love talking about data with everyone. So yeah, that's our little demo. And so again, we have 30 different insights here available. Not everyone's going to be applicable to every customer, every user. There's different user personas, and we can get into some of that as well. But yeah.
All right, well, glad that we got a little bit of an oversight as to where you guys are headed. Lots to dive into, just even looking at the demo itself. And I know the first question we wanted to get into is around data, and specifically dirty data. Just in terms of format, my goal is to pass around the 3 questions that we have, and then if we have some time at the end, be able to field some things from the audience. I would like to have some time underneath our little video here, if it's at all possible, because I want to give us 5 to 10 minutes. So if somebody could get on that, that'd be great. Otherwise, we'll plan to just dive right in. We'll talk first about what kind of data is involved here. People are sort of looking at what's on screen and saying, well, what do I need to get there? And also, what are some of the dirtiness challenges we have to wrestle through? Whoever wants to grab onto that, let's start there.
Okay, like I said, with data quality should not be a barrier to making an impact. Everyone says, I have dirty data. Everyone is correct. And we can handle it. There's a lot of automated solutions to be able to handle this by normalizing text fields, understanding price distributions, understanding where things are blank, why they're blank, and pre-filling blank fields with, let's say you have the same purchase from the same purchasing org, same item, same price. There's ways that you can pre-fill and sort of clean up data automatically. One also area that we're exploring is entity resolution. So, text fields around item names, that, it could be 3 inches or it could be 3 feet, right? That's just one change in apostrophe, but that has a certain text similarity between those 2 texts that's very high. So if we can understand that similarity in text, we can start to classify it and consolidate it. Or maybe we see frequently that it's split in a price distribution of 2 different segments, 3 inches and 3 feet. We can understand that those are actually pretty significantly different. So it depends on how often things are occurring. And so yeah, data quality is not a barrier, and we try to segment it out and make an impact on that, but focus in on data that is cleaner to start.
Before I pass the mic around here, in terms of the data you guys tackle, it's mostly just these raw exports, Excel. Everybody's are going to be formatted differently. What's up in the header is going to be all different for everybody. They're coming out of different systems. Is this a correct understanding here?
Yeah, we're mostly taking in static files. The future is that all of this is being built in real time, automated through data feeds. And so also, if we have that set up, data cleanliness becomes an easier problem because we can see it coming through over time and understand where the problems are going to be and go tackle them because we've seen it before.
Got it. Okay, so we're just piping in the raw static files here. Ben, Mal, anything else you want to chip in on the challenges of dirty data and what kind of data is used?
Well, I think the challenges are definitely most pronounced at the outset of our customer relationships because, as Eric just mentioned, we're working with static files, data dumps out of an external system, rather than where we like to get to with customers, which is a full-on enterprise integration where we've done a data mapping step and really deeply understand their schemas and all of their external systems. So just wanted to add in that little bit of context that's the biggest challenges for dirty data for us tend to be at the start of the relationship with the customer.
Anything to chip in, Mel?
No,
one more. All right, one other quick thing to kind of unpack here. So it sounds as though the heavy lifting, if I'm hearing you correctly, and just for the understanding of the audience, you're going to get these raw downloads. Everybody's are going to be different. They're going to be missing things in weird ways. They're going to be replacing symbols with symbols in weird ways. They're going to have columns you've never seen before and have no idea what they are. I imagine there's a good amount of subject matter expertise on their side and your side that have to come together in order to do that. Can we talk through just for 2 seconds sort of what those initial engagements look like? Because this is the human intelligence that lets the AI do its thing, and I think it's important to understand.
Yeah, I can take that one with an example. We were just in a deep dive here on messy data with the example of Granger, and there was 10 different versions of Granger. That comes up often in customer situations as well. But when we actually produce the PIA, the first thing we do is get sanity checking. Like, does this look right? And often we see that there is that Granger situation where there's Granger Inc., Granger Inc., all capitalized. And that first point of feedback is saying, where should these be consolidated versus not? And from that point on, being able to correct that on our side. So you can sort of think of that as like a raw adjusted from our end that we can adjust moving forward. But I think the more powerful feedback is also then giving that feedback back to the customer to say, hey, you should really think about consolidating Granger on your side so that from now onwards, when we have consistent purchase order feeds, we all can sort of talk about the same supplier in the same way. So we don't think dirty data is an obstacle to produce that first PIA impact or procurement impact assessment, but then we actually start the conversation on how do we adjust this data so you and I, like our team, can build a better product together that can really have impact in terms of savings opportunities, process improvements, supplier opportunities, and so forth.
Cool. Anything else on Ben, Eric, on that kind of initial sort of, you just get their big, ugly, goofy download and now you guys have to work together? Anything else expectation-wise that's important to grasp about that?
Yeah, I think we don't want to come into this assuming that we know what your business is doing. So we really like to communicate and over-communicate on what is what, as mapping data fields to our common framework, or understanding why a supplier may be preferred, where things are on contract versus off contract. There's a lot of additional data sources besides PO data or AP data, and so we want to take in more and more to help flesh out the story.
Cool.
Yeah, I think it's really important to point out that we see our relationships with our customers as a true partnership, where we're bringing, of course, our expertise in data science, machine learning, and procurement. We've got a lot of procurement knowledge on the team, of course, but we're marrying that with our customers' knowledge of their business, because nobody knows that better than our customers. Far be it from us to come in and proclaim to know how to run any one of our customers' businesses better than they do. So it's really important that we establish that partnership up front. And we both, contribute massively to it as we go along, and it's really the best results that we see with customers are where that partnership is really functioning super highly.
Cool. So important to understand for folks that are adopting this stuff. On the side of who's using this, I think that clearly the impact is when somebody's leveraging what we just saw on the dashboard, making calls and making better business decisions. Talk a little bit about who this is for and sort of when they would pull this up and interact with the various dashboards we have here.
Yeah, I'm happy to take that one. So the procurement impact assessment, as you saw in the demo, is really aimed at that, head of procurement, CPO, the character I played in the demo, as well as their category managers. So it's a high-level assessment aimed at those strategic members of the procurement team. We used to, in early days, talk about it as an opportunity assessment too. So looking at opportunities in your spend base to drive impact. So that initial, historical view that the PIA gives is really useful to those personas and within our customers. As we transition into the real-time recommendations in the control tower, it's really important to call out that as that rolls out within a customer's employee base, those recommendations can be really impactful to the line of business. And that's why it's so important that those recommendations are delivered via email in real time rather than requiring that anybody log in and check another pane of glass day in, day out to see them. It's just so much more effective, we found, when folks are getting notified as near as possible to the actual underlying event that we're calling out or flagging as an anomaly or an exception.
Cool. So if I'm heading up procurement myself, I can imagine there's different junctures of my workflow in life when I would say, I might want to check in with Arkestro. One of them might be, the things sort of stepping outside of your business, not knowing exactly when these workflows are. Maybe it would be, I'm going to make a big purchase, jeepers, I better go kind of look at who the preferred person is, what the pricing might be. Is there also a case where people are just looking at their overall spend, trying to think about, should we consolidate who we're working with? It feels like there's big strategy meetings where I might want to look at this. There's also just day-to-day purchases. Am I missing something between those two in terms of the other times when this information is going to drive value in terms of decision making?
Yeah, no, I think that's really well put. Like there's the kind of maybe monthly or quarterly cadence at the executive level who are looking at these reports, really diving in deep. To understand kind of broader opportunities for impacts, how to buy differently, how to structure, their next, 6 months or their next year from a procurement process and be strategic about how they deploy resources, when they buy stuff, how much they buy, all that. But then there's the real-time use case that's particularly useful within purchasing, though there are many sourcing applications as well, where you want to make sure that you're for example, flagging a PO before it becomes an invoice, and trying to catch problematic events as they happen. So yeah, Dan, I think you've articulated the two cadences really well.
And I really, last point on this, because I think this is pretty fascinating. In the beginning of sort of enterprise AI 5 years ago, everybody thought they were going to have people log into their cool dashboard and integrate with everybody's data. And wow, is that much harder than is that much harder said than done? In terms of the email use case, I think it's a very interesting example of just do it the way the customer wants to see it. Talk about who's looking at their inbox when this pings them and how that's immediately informing them, because maybe not everybody saw your demo, but I think that understanding how that works into the workflow is kind of a cool part about the user experience.
Yeah, well, I think the example that I'd give is, it's that end user in the line of business. Perhaps it's the requisitioner, the person who actually submitted the requisition, who were alerting that they could have gotten a better price or could have or should have chosen a different supplier that's preferred by the business. That's going to get them a faster approval. It's going to get them their stuff on time. And what we found is those users, definitely don't want to log. They probably weren't even particularly happy filling out the requisition to begin with, right? Like a lot of those users don't like having to log into Coupa. They don't have to like logging into. Yep. They don't like logging into Ariba. But what they are used to is using email and having just a helpful nudge that can point them in the right direction, whether they take action within the underlying system or over email itself, is really, really beneficial to those users.
So there's two things. There's here's what you could have done better post-decision, and then there's maybe sort of here's what you might do because you're about to do a decision. Both are relevant prompts, if I'm understanding.
Exactly.
Cool.
Exactly.
Anything else to add from the other panels before we get into the last question? Okay. So I want to talk a little bit about the future. One of the fun things here is sort of where is AI and data transforming what we're doing now. We're getting a sense of your workflow, your guys' approach. 5 years from now, procurement's going to be a little different than it is today. Data is going to be treated differently. You guys are already talking about this integration and making things more real time. Whoever wants to grab this can, but we've got procurement leaders in the audience. What kind of a world do they need to be ready for in terms of how data and AI are going to transform what they do every day?
Yeah, I can take this one. I believe that Arkestro's platform is going to enable superhumans of procurement. And why I say that is and superhumans of procurement powered by machine learning is because I believe that it's never going to replace humans. It's this fusion of humans that are powered by machine learning that's really going to create the best outcome. You saw in the demo, we did a lot of descriptive stats, so what has happened in the past, but in the evolution of an analytics or machine learning, you have to go into why it happened, or diagnostic, then predictive, and then prescriptive. And from there, I sort of think that we need human input to make these machine learning models better. Like the classic 4-step model to building a machine learning model is, first, just set a baseline. What opportunities or transactions have we seen historically that are good transactions and ones that have opportunities? Second, let's actually spit out those real-time recommendations to influence decisions that are happening on a day-to-day basis. Third, capture the feedback of the user, as simple as, do they accept that recommendation or do they reject that recommendation? And then finally, use that as training to be able to capture the tribal knowledge of an organization or the preferences of an organization to make those recommendations even better. And so for me, it's sort of thinking about how can we drive real-time visibility? How can we alert on anomalistic behavior? How do we actually data enrich an ecosystem so you feel confident or you build trust in those recommendations? And I think the two things that every procurement expert can expect from us is that, one, we really want that adoption, that user behavior, to train models and make them better for you. So that means no new systems. We don't want to introduce another learning curve that you have to understand to give us that input, because we really do believe the fusion of those two things is what's going to create better outcomes. That's number one. And number two is it takes time. Like any sort of recommendation system that you've probably worked with, TikTok, Amazon, YouTube, you do need to provide that input, right? I've watched the full length of this video, and that tells YouTube what the better recommendation is the next time around. So the second thing you can expect is it's going to take time. Everything is driven by that user input, and you can expect recommendations to improve as a result.
Yeah, I think there's a big theme around trust. Like you mentioned, Netflix, Amazon, users implicitly trust these systems already, and yet there are some industries and some software tools where people don't trust data yet. They don't trust machine learning recommendations, and so that will come in 5 years. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, I think the key word, trust, confidence, like I love that word. We talk about that a lot internally as a product team, that's really, in many ways, our North Star, is giving our end users and their suppliers confidence that they're getting the right price, that they're paying the right price, that they're following the right process. And I think what's really interesting, and our challenge in the space is, I'm speaking to a bunch of procurement professionals in this room. I think procurement professionals, what makes y'all great is you understand the nuance of the processes that you participate in and of the stuff that you buy and the way to buy it. I think that's machine learning's real challenge, any machine learning solution's real challenge is to capture all of that nuance and build that into the process so that you as the end users and your suppliers really trust the underlying solution at the end of the day. So I think, when you look at what's happening in the broader space of AI with large language models and things like that, I think we're seeing now with things like GPT-3 that AI systems can actually capture a lot of nuance and attention to detail. I'm really excited to see how that evolves specifically within procurement and machine learning in our space. So I'm really excited for the next 5 years.
6 months from now or 3 months from now, I feel like there's a whole GPT-3 and procurement panel that we might have. There'll be reasons to chat in the future, guys. I want to be mindful of our time for the audience and pass some things out to these superhumans with tribal knowledge, as they've now been described. I still don't have a timer up here, so somebody can wave violently or bring out the shepherd's hook or however you want to rip us off the stage. But otherwise, I want to talk to some folks in the audience. So raise your hand if you've got any questions for anybody up on stage around data, AI, and procurement, and we will field some cues. Don't make me pick on you. Anybody in the back? Going once, going twice? Yes, sir. Got it. I'll repeat for the recording, presuming that we need to do that. I've not my first dog and pony show. So I think what I'm hearing here is, hey, we've heard about some types of data that are types of purchases and folks we buy from that we might want to use for this. Are there some we might want to steer clear from, whether for compliance reasons or complexity reasons or otherwise? We'll pass that around.
I don't think we like to steer away from anything. I think complex engineered services and parts are more challenging to deal with. Why, how do we derive preference around that when it could be something completely new? You have a service you need to get for something completely new, and you're going to bring in, maybe you're creating a bid for 3 different suppliers. 2 of them you've never used before because you've never built this thing or needed this service before. So what we try to do is bring in enriched information there. Just because it's not in your historical spend doesn't mean no one is looking at these suppliers and these types of things. So we try to bring in outside information there. It's definitely more challenging in determining the right data source to use to make decisions and make recommendations can be a big challenge. But those are fun problems to solve also.
I was going to say the best machine learning problems are the ones where you have large training data and you have consistency on how that training is captured. And so with like complex services, maybe the volume is much less, and it's kind of hard to discern why are we paying this consulting firm this price versus another consulting firm a different price? What is the underlying drivers of those values? And with those inconsistencies on how that's actually determined, those aren't good use cases for machine learning overall. At a company I used to work for, we tried to actually decode product differentiation of like CPG products. So if you go to a Whole Foods and you see CPG brands, we said, can we actually build a model that said this product's packaging was different than another, consumer packaged goods packaging, because we believed consumers were tied to the packaging. But the hard part about that is if you ask a consumer investor, hey, does this packaging look different? And then you ask the same different consumer investor, does this packaging look different? They're going to give you wildly different answers. And so there's no consistent taxonomy for you to decode that consistency of product differentiation. And you really need to pool hundreds of people to have consistency. So it all comes down to volume of training data and the consistency of those drivers that make machine learning applications in its best performance or have the best performance metrics.
Yeah, and I think it's hopefully helpful context to bring in that the machine learning aspects of the Arkestro platform are in many ways just half of the equation. That's really the behavioral science, the human science, as Rob likes to say, that makes the magic happen. So, and it's important that the behavioral science and the game theory is within the product, because in these cases, like complex engineered parts and services, where we have customers running those types of projects through the platform every day, we're still able to add value in those projects when we don't have a good baseline or we don't have a good price prediction, because the platform is still going to do all of the things that it's excellent on the behavioral science side, ranking, feedback, all of those pieces of the product that you saw in the demo today are effective and helpful even when we don't have maybe a super high confidence prediction for the category or the specific project.
Cool. Good question, good answers. The courage required to ask a question is now 75% less, thanks to our good man for breaking the ice here. So who else wants to raise their hand, pass something around for our panelists? Anybody else? Yes.
Can you talk a little about the types of external data you see enriching the data set over the next 12 to 24 months?
A good question. So the types of external data we hope to see enrich this process, maybe today, actually, I'd be curious, but certainly into the future. Go ahead, guys.
Sure. So there's supplier information, firmographic information that we automatically enrich, such as like supplier size, revenue, when it was founded, employee count. Those may not seem like important factors, but we can derive preference based on if you go with a supplier that's 100 employees versus a supplier that's 10,000 employees, especially around geographic location too. If we know where your plants are that are making these purchases, you're probably going to go with someone nearby because that can reduce costs also. So firmographic, then diversity. We enrich with 108 different diversity certifications, minority-owned, veteran-owned, women-owned, LGBTQ, plus 100 more. We can use that all to derive preference and drive towards strategic goals. And then ESG information as well. So environmental, social, and governance, grades on certain suppliers, and they have that down to how much carbon is emitted at certain plants, right? There's varying levels of enriched information in each of these areas, but that's all just around supplier. So then price, you can look at commodity indices, you can look at the price of labor, you can look at inflation metrics. There's many different enriched data sources around price. We want to look at external catalogs. So that's just a few.
I like this question.
Yeah, I think for the next 6 months, we'll also start incorporating and strengthening our ability to characterize supplier risk. So we talk about products or features that we want to build and all of those external data sources that kind of go and create that knowledge graph. So commodity indices help us with price, ESG diversity help us with supplier preference, and then risk allows us to mitigate the supplier risk that we take on. So we'll be characterizing a lot of that as well.
Yeah, I don't have too much more to add.
Cool, fantastic. All right.
These two had to say, but risk is a big one for us, particularly over the next 6 months to a year. We know that our customers make their buying decisions off of price and risk. So, and risk is not, it's not a single score. It means different things to different people. There's financial risk, credit risk, reputational risk, ESG risk. I mean, the list goes on just within the meta category of risk. So we're looking at a number of different avenues for bringing more risk data into the platform and leveraging it to make our predictions provoke more confidence in our customers.
Cool, all right. We've got another 5 on the clock here if anybody else has any other questions now that we've got a clock ticking away. Anybody else want to raise their hand and pass anything around for our panelists? Yes.
For companies that do a lot of acquisitions that may have a lot of different ERPs, a lot of different systems, a lot of different, some are invoice only, some are purchase order only, type scenarios, what's your call out to them if they're kind of holding back saying, I really need to get my data in a better place, or I need to get more consensus across the entire acquisition before we move forward, in terms of Arkestro being able to handle so many different situations like that?
Well, I think we can give them the confidence that they're missing. It may not be across everything. We want to start small in one particular area. We want to go on site and talk to you about your pain and your problems. And if the data supports, an opportunity there in one particular area, let's just start there and then let's see where it goes from there. But I think those are some of the most ripe opportunities where data is coming from many different places. We can help try to understand it all and see what ties to what. Try to find patterns in activity, temporal patterns over time. Maybe something's happening in one system and it's happening in another system, and we can tie that together and just derive an insight that you didn't know it was occurring. So, yeah, I think that's.
Yeah, it's a use case where we're certainly familiar with. We just had 2 of our customers merge into one company. So, and we see it as part of our role to help our customers on their data journey. And I think much of your question really gets at our integration strategy and our integration offerings, which maybe next time we do a panel on those. But it's really foundational to our platform that we be able to connect to and integrate with any system, as long as it has a database and or an API. So. We have a number of capabilities that we've built and are still building in some cases that make it really easy for customers to bring new data sources into the Arkestro platform.
All right, 3 minutes on the clock. We've got enough time for one more if anybody's got one and wants to be brave enough to raise a hand. We'll pass it around for our panelists. Oh.
So Arkestro helps procurement across tons of a variety of items and even different industries. How do you generalize your machine learning models to be able to handle all these different types of procurement cases?
All right, generalizing across different types of procurement cases across industries. How do we do it?
So I think we talk about this a lot where what are you buying and does that matter? This is a somewhat controversial statement, but let's say you're buying 10,000 PCs. And then you're also buying 10 PCs at a different time. Are those transactions similar? Or are they, or maybe you're buying 10,000 computer monitors. And so I'm pulling this from a conversation I had earlier, but probably 10,000 PCs is more similar to 10,000 monitors, is more similar to 10,000 pieces of manufacturing equipment that are bought at similar prices, at similar cadences, compared to 10 PCs, right? Because there's volume-based price breaks, there's different supplier relationships when you buy different volumes and at different times. So we really try to understand preference and process activity to understand what should go with what, right? Like when you're building a machine learning model to understand what the price should be or could be in a negotiation, you really want to compare those to 10,000 purchases of monitors and 10,000 manufacturing equipment rather than the 10 PC purchase, because the similar human behavior is going to happen across those 10,000 purchases rather than the 10 purchases. So it's kind of generalizable across categories and across verticals, across plants that are having similar human behavior rather than similar item purchasing things, for lack of a better word.
Cool.
Yeah, I think previous attempts to apply machine learning in the procurement space have fallen into the item identity trap, where if you don't have super clean data, if you don't know exactly what every single line item you're trying to buy is, down to a really high degree of specificity, and then have that ability to, identify line items across customer bases and make generalizations over a broader spend base, your product doesn't function. So the approach that we took early on here at Arkestro is to look at, the problem of just buying at various quantities and various units of measure, and try to build models that can function in situations where the underlying knowledge of the data that you're working with is quite low, where you might just know the price, the quantity, the unit of measure, the number of suppliers participating. And so we like to really start there and then build on top of that. So having additional identity information is always can always be helpful in adding more accuracy to the model, but fundamentally our approach doesn't require knowing exactly what it is you're trying to buy to make accurate price predictions.
All right, well, that's exactly it on time. So Ben, thank you for wrapping it up. I'd like to give a big thank you to our panelists and thank all of you superhumans in the audience for joining us today. That's it for us. Thanks so much.